Good afternoon, sisters and brothers. Welcome to our 2021 Workers' Memorial Day celebration and the first live broadcast of VO, Vox Operántium, the Voice of the Worker, a studio production of the Cincinnati AFL-CIO Labor Council. I'm proud to be here along with my co-hosts, Bill Froehle, President of Cincinnati AFL-CIO, Business Manager of the Pipefitters Local 392, Brian Strunk, Vice President of United Auto Workers, Local 647. And honored to have our special guest with us today, Tim Burga, President of the Ohio AFL-CIO, and Ken Montgomery, the Director of the OSHA Cincinnati Area Office. So we are fully vaccinated, everybody in this room, so we can be maskless. Thank you very much. We are broadcasting live from the VO studio located on the third floor of the Pipefitters Union Hall in downtown Cincinnati. And as our first broadcast, I appreciate everyone's patience if we need to work through any technical glitches that may arise if a wheel falls off. But we'll move on and the show will go on. But now I'm proud to have the presentation of the colors by the Springboro High School Air Force ROTC, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, National Anthem, and Lift Every Voice and Sing by Cincinnati artist Shon Estee Hubble.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sisters, brothers, and friends, please welcome a phenomenal gospel music vocalist, accomplished pianist and keyboard player, prolific writer of more than 100 songs, a dynamic music arranger and producer, and gospel artist extraordinaire, Ms. Shon Hubble, known to many of us as Estee.
Early
we'd like to thank Miss Estee and the Springboro ROTC for that great invocation and or the great national anthem and the song. So, Workers' Memorial Day 2021. Ryan, as you know, every year we go out to your hall, UAW, on the Reading Road, and we celebrate, we honor the passing, and we fight for the future. And then we have some beers, some brats, some big discussions, and unfortunately we can't do that, but with the pandemic and everything going on, but we still can come together like this. Remember the workers who suffer from workplace injuries and illnesses, and those workers who've died on the job in the past year.
Absolutely.
And it's never been more important today, witnessing the heroic actions of millions of frontline workers over the past year with the COVID-19 pandemic. And I don't want to leave anyone out, but you're talking nurses, bus drivers, firefighters, public sector workers, hospitality workers, grocery store clerks, social workers, teachers. I mean, it just goes on and on. And we owe all of them a big debt of gratitude and thanks for their services and keeping our country running, especially in these hard times. But as you all know, on Labor Day we come together, we celebrate workplace safety. We also recognize the need to do more. And unfortunately, despite the responsibility of an employer to have a safe workplace, we still see that thousands of workers are killed every year, and millions more get sick or injured by preventable workplace accidents. So, and as to quote AFL-CIO President Trumka, he always says, nobody should die simply because they go to work, and that they're providing for her or his family. So this week, we're honoring those lost, and we're also fighting like hell for the living.
Absolutely.
And in solidarity with the National AFL-CIO, our sisters and brothers at their state feds and other central labor councils across the country, we're also participating in a PRO-ACT National Week of Action, which includes our Workers' Memorial Day celebration and our May Day celebrations this Saturday. But again, we're working to protect the rights of all workers to organize in their workplace, empower workers to collectively bargain for fair contracts without fear of intimidation, retaliation, or intimidation, and also the PRO-ACT to give workers a real voice in safety and health at their workplaces. So on this Workers' Memorial Day, we asked our Ohio Senator Rob Portman to join with Senator Sherrod Brown and 47 other U.S. senators to pass the PRO-ACT and say yes to worker safety and the workers' empowerment. It's passed by the House, I think, Tim, it was March 9th, so it's long overdue.
Right about there, yeah.
And, the PRO-ACT will mean stronger unions, and stronger unions mean higher wages, safer working conditions, and dignity for all working people in the 21st century. So
that's important. That's important to make that very clear that this isn't just about labor unions. This is about workers across this country, whether they're members of a labor union or not, that we're fighting for all workers regardless. So I think that's a very important point to make.
And Tim, as you commented to me about, there are millions of workers, 60 to 70% of workers who want the right to organize, who want to join a union, but under current laws, they can't.
Well, that's true, Pete. And like my grandparents and my parents who came out of the mine workers and the steel workers, they understand the best opportunity to have safe workplaces and to come home after your shift is to have a labor union, to have a voice at work that you can talk about these issues in a collectively bargained and binding way. So it's very important what you're doing here today to recognize the fallen workers and to also recognize the best way to keep workplaces safe is for workers to be able to come together collectively if they choose to in their own free will and form and join a union. And that's what the Protecting the Right to Organize Act is all about. So it's unions that help keep us safe with our good friends at OSHA and government safety arms. And we've got to make sure that we have clear the field of obstacles and intimidation and fear, because we have millions, tens of millions of workers in this country who would join a union tomorrow if they had a chance to. but the obstacles are so difficult to get there, and that's what the PRO Act is about. So recognizing the fallen workers on April the 28th, and as Ken knows and my brothers here know in labor, it was 50 years ago today that the Occupational Safety and Health Administration opened its doors, because organized labor were the ones that got out there and lobbied and put legislation, policy together called the Occupational Safety and Health Act. And as a result of that, we've got safer workplaces. And in the state of Ohio, we work very closely with OSHA. We work very closely with our state elected leaders. And we've moved a lot of advances in the area of state grants for safety and training. But as we all know, one worker who loses his or her life in the line of work is one too many. So today is Workers' Memorial Day. So each year we put together this booklet of those who have lost their lives in the line of work in Ohio the preceding year. And today we read the names and are reading the names and are ringing the bell of 124 workers who lost their lives last year in the line of work that were in workplaces here in Ohio. So as Pete said, it's important, and we've got labor councils and unions around the state who are recognizing our fallen workers, and we're going to, no better way to honor them than to pass the PRO Act. And that is part of the core message that we're having this Memorial Day.
And I think it's important that 124 families of those fallen workers have lost their loved one, probably their primary source of income for their entire family, and it has changed the direction of those families for generations to come. And nobody should ever go to work and not have the ability to return home to their families at the end of that work shift and do the things that we all want to do, which is raise our families, give our children the opportunity to try and do better than we do, and to do it safely. I think that is really important.
That is a great point. That it's, being the area director for OSHA in Southern Ohio, when we have to make contact with those next of kin, that is the hardest part of my folks' jobs. To sit in that living room or wherever we meet, and they cry with them, they laugh with them. It's every emotion you can possibly think of.
Yes.
And when you watch a family suffer that,
Yes.
and you watch what may be that primary source of income, and now it takes two people to work to survive. And I've literally seen families just destruct from a fatality, and it's senseless, and I appreciate you bringing up the 50th anniversary of OSHA, and that's what created the OSHA Act, was it says that every employer shall create a safe and healthful work environment for all employees. But in 2021, not only that, it's morally and ethically, it's the right thing to do.
Thank you.
It is the right thing to do. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Okay. Well, we'll now go to the time-honored tradition that UAW has always done with honoring the POW MIA Missing Man tribute. And I'll turn it over to you, Brian, and to Bill, especially Bill, you being a veteran.
Absolutely. UAW 647, they've been involved in the Workers' Memorial since 1989 in some way or form. But the Missing Man tribute, it's about the missing soldier. It's an empty table that's unmanned, and everything on the table means something, as you'll see in the video. But it's significant to show honor to the missing soldier that had the ultimate sacrifice, because they can't be with us anymore.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think the symbolism of the missing man at that table, and the fact that probably 95% or better of veterans and POW MIAs came from families such as ours.
Absolutely.
That were working families throughout the course of the history of the United States of America. And those men and women went overseas to do a job for this country, to keep us safe and provide the freedoms that we enjoy today. The tribute that you all do for those POW MIAs is incredible. It hits me every year.
Thank you.
Right in the heart, not just because I'm a veteran, but because I've got members in my own local who lost brothers and sisters, and I've got members
Absolutely.
who never came back from there. So it's a time-honored tradition that we should never ever forget, and the service members to this day who are still suffering those same tragedies in their families. We need to let them know that they will never be forgotten.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank you.
service.
I present. I commence. I reload. I present. I commence. I reload. I commence.
We call your attention to this small table which occupies a place of dignity and honor. The table is round to show our everlasting concern for those who are no longer with us and missing from our ranks. They are men and women who served our country. We call them prisoners of war, missing in action, or killed in action. We call them comrades, friends, and family. They are unable to be with their loved ones this evening, so we join together to pay a humble tribute to them and to remember. Allow me to explain the meaning of the arrangement of this special table. The table, set for one, is small. It symbolizes the frailty of one soldier alone against the captors. It symbolizes the loneliness we feel without them. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their motives when answering their country's call to duty. The candle reminds us of the light of hope which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home. The single rose, displayed in a vase, signifies the blood they have shed to ensure the freedom of our beloved country. The rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our comrades who will not return. The red ribbon, tied so prominently on the vase, is reminiscent of the red ribbon worn upon the lapel and breast of thousands who bear witness to the tragedy of those who are missing. A slice of lemon rests on the plate to remind us of their bitter fate. There is salt. When sprinkled on the plate, it reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families and loved ones as they wait. The wine glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us again. The chair is forever empty. They are not here. Tonight, we take time to recall those who were our comrades in arms. We depended on them for aid and support. Let us remember them and never forget their sacrifices. Let us honor all of our missing service members as we stand for a moment of silence.
Thank you, Brian, for that presentation. Very good video, and always remember, never forget.
Absolutely.
Whenever I see a veteran, I'm out with my kids, I'm always saying, go up and shake his hand, shake her hand, thank them for their service. And, it's always nice to see the glimmer in their eye, of the gratitude and how they appreciate that. So
Absolutely.
very, very important to make sure our young people understand and respect.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's important to understand that the veterans, this nation's veterans, the make up from all walks of life, from all corners of this country. Every state in this nation has suffered the loss of a POW, MIA, KIA, and it's not exclusive to just one group or anything else. So it's important that we never forget that sacrifice from this day going forward. So.
Yes, exactly. Okay, well, now in the program, this is when we traditionally, Brian, go to the roll call for the fallen.
Yep.
And we recognize those who've lost their lives on the job or due to workplace injury and illnesses in the greater Cincinnati area over in the year of 2020. So I'd like to thank Tim Burga for the information you got with us from the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Comp, and also Kentucky AFL-CIO for their help with this list. So we'll now go to the video. George?
Harold Atkins. Timothy Adkins. Daniel Arman. Tasha Bahena. Derek Bradford. Marcus Allen Galbraith. Kaya Grant. Daniel Scott Hornsby. David Jones. Joshua Adam Jones. William Korn. Adam McMillan. Domingo Agustin Mendoza. Matthew Modell. Lauren Schumann. Leo Stevens. Martin Torres Lopez. David Ray Willis.
On behalf of the Cincinnati AFL-CIO, our partners at UAW, and I know Tim would say with the state, our hearts and thoughts and prayers go out to the families. I mean, losing loved ones, as Bill said, these are mothers and fathers, their sisters and brothers, their aunts and uncles, their sons and daughters. And we can never, again, never forget and always remember their lives.
Absolutely.
It's always moving, and I'm just so proud of the work that labor councils and our unions and our allies do to recognize those fallen. And you know, this last year, 2020 is going to be remembered for the year that workers sacrificed so much to get us through this pandemic. Our frontline workers gave everything they've had to deliver us through this pandemic, and we owe it to them. We owe it to those who have fallen and those who have borne the brunt of becoming sick, injured, or killed on the job to fight for policies that build on the legacy of OSHA and help our friends in OSHA keep our workplaces safe. And that's where we're so determined to pass the Protect the Right to Organizing Act, because when you have an opportunity again to come together at the workplace to talk about safety and health and do it in a way that matters and has some binding apparatus connected to it, then you're really doing everything you can to keep that workplace safe. So it's and you know, when we look at the 124 deaths that occurred in Ohio last year, a number of those were COVID-related workplace deaths. So you know, we've done so much to get better on our industrial sites and our building trade sites and our with our safety forces and our healthcare forces. There's so much more yet that we need to do. We need to really encourage our legislators and the Biden administration and others to ramp up hiring at OSHA and build the apparatus federally and in state and locally to help oversee workplace safety, especially in those places that don't have a union. So it's just a tremendous honor to be here as you've recognized those fallen in the Cincinnati area.
Yep, Tim, as many of us know in the room, you're a third-generation steel worker of over 30 years of leadership, labor leadership and advocacy in the state of Ohio. You're leading one of the strongest, most active, recognized state federations in the country. And we thank you for coming down to Cincinnati and spending the day with us.
Well, it's unions that built this state, built this country, and created the middle class. And we've got to fight every day to make sure that people understand that and that we reward work and that we value work. And I hear it all the time from Senator Sherrod Brown recognizing the dignity of work, whether it's health and safety on the job, it's wages, it's pensions. It's just giving us the opportunity to do our part to give to society, but then have our laws and policies help us out. And you know, that's what it's all about. And when that happens, when workers win, society wins, and our overall economy grows.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I agree.
So, Brian, from the UAW perspective, in your factories and in your plants, you know, what are you hearing from the workers regarding COVID and going back to work and getting back to a sense of normalcy for some of us?
Oh yeah, they all want to get back to normal, right? We all do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like the social distancing, we had to overcome some hurdles about working together but social distance at the same time. So it's kind of hard, but they're looking forward to getting over that hurdle so they can go back to normal.
Exactly. And Bill, from the building trades perspective, what are you seeing? What are you hearing from our brothers and sisters in the trades?
I think a lot of what Brian said rings true with the building trades also. The biggest thing, these young men and women and older men and women like me that are out there in the field every day working on these job sites, whether it's the hospital work that has been going on for the COVID-related testing and everything else, or the stadium across the street for the new FC Cincinnati team. Our construction workers generally work hand in hand, all the crafts working together and on top of each other a lot of times. to try and accomplish the schedule and the goals that they need to get done for their contractors. So we've got a lot of folks working in close proximity to each other.
Yeah.
Some have had COVID illnesses. Some have had family members at home that have had COVID. They have to go to work every day to provide for their families. We need to make sure that that social safety net that the labor unions provide for our members and for all workers is there when they need it, because it's such a big deal. You have no idea day in and day out how many times you're going to be exposed to somebody that may have had COVID or might be carrying COVID and be asymptomatic.
Right.
You have no idea at all. So our members are doing the social distancing as much as possible. However, construction being the animal that it is, it's really tough to keep people separated and really get a lot of the work done. So.
Absolutely.
You know, this conversation, Pete, has got me thinking, because I testified last year, the pandemic has exposed so many inequities and problems. Look at our supply chain for just simple products to keep us safe in a pandemic. Masks, gloves, sanitizer, incubators, ventilators, all those things that we have outsourced to the rest of the world. And we have got to understand and recognize this is a national security issue about keeping us safe. So I'm really optimistic that so many of our policymakers understand that now. And so many of our policymakers, whether they we're seeing a construction site continuing to be built during a pandemic, the steel workers and the auto workers and machinists in there continuing to make essential products that we need to move our society forward. A lot of it was the PPE stuff. Whether it was our first responders and our folks in grocery retail, we were out there getting it done and helping us deliver us through this pandemic. And I think it's really shined a light on things we already knew, but so many kind of take for granted, right? And so many policymakers take for granted that we have a real opportunity now to build back better in so many ways. And we're going to do our part in organized labor to make that happen. And again, holding events like this and having our friends in government that are responsible for the oversight of safety and health, you know, this is how we do it.
And if there's one thing we've learned definitely through this pandemic is just the strong link between workplace safety, health, and our communities. I mean, when we've lost over 500,000 people in this country, the virus has devastated working families, especially having the disproportionate impact on the people of color. It just shows that workplace safety and a strong voice by workers goes hand in hand. And again, decades of evidence shows when you have a unionized workplace, it's going to be a safer workplace. Again, that's why we need Congress to act and pass the PRO Act, and we need them to fully fund and strengthen our enforcement agencies, like OSHA, so that we can renew the promise to working people and to future generations that they are going to have safer workplaces, they are going to have safer equipment, and it is going to be better for all our future workers.
And I think it's important that we have politicians on both sides of the aisle, such as Governor DeWine, and I think he's done a great job doing this and bringing others along and taking some of the politics out of the COVID vaccination scare that was there originally, 9 months ago, a year ago, and actually coming together and urging people to get that vaccination when it's available to them and to help get this under control and hopefully get things back to normal. I think you take the politics out of it, you've got people on both sides working together, and hopefully the doubters and the naysayers will listen to one or the other and do the right thing. So,
yeah. President Froehle, health and safety is not a partisan issue. You're so right. And I'm so encouraged right now that we're working with the DeWine administration to use union facilities and halls as vaccination sites. Right now, supply is there with the vaccine. Demand is starting to drop a little bit for a lot of different reasons. We need to get the vaccines now closer to where people are, make it easier for them to get them. So we're going to put them in the neighborhoods, and we're working with them right now with facilities around the state, union halls, and to the extent that we have some down here in the greater Cincinnati area, I'll be working with you all to connect you with the right folks who will make this happen. But we're really encouraged about, again, labor's role. I mean, we're in the community. I mean, we do the community work. we're here for our members, we're here for the families of our members, and we're here for the local community. Bill, you know that better than anybody in the building trades, the work you do in the community, the work UAW does, and the Labor Council. This is what we do, and it's our responsibility and it's our obligation, and we're just so grateful that we're in a position to be able to do that.
Well, this is a great introduction to our special guest of honor. Ken Montgomery, the OSHA Cincinnati Area Director. To say it's been a busy year for you is probably the biggest understatement you're going to hear today. But dealing with COVID-related issues and changing administration, but we're proud to have you here today. And I know you guys have been busy. You've put out many guidelines and memorandums helping employers and employees deal with COVID-19. I mean, returning to work, mitigating and preventing the spread of COVID-19, best practices for industry-specific companies, lessons learned from COVID violations that you guys have done inspections on, and then helping employers better protect the workers and comply with your regulations. So what's your perspective on 2021 and going forward?
Wow.
Was that enough?
I don't even know where to go with that one, Peter. But I want to thank you all for having me here. Some unbelievable points have been made here tonight, and I think remembering those, it's amazing. I watch those names, and they all come back. You know, those cases, they each one come back. I remember those families. I remember the next of kin. It's kind of heart-wrenching every year to sit there and watch that part of it, and you make a personal connection with it. 500,000 dead. How do we even fathom that? Where do we take that? The first thing I think I would like to say is thank you to all of those folks, especially in the trades, that had PPE during these shortages, which we should never have had. We should never have had. You know, that donated, they realized that they might not be an essential person, and it might jeopardize their livelihoods down the road of when do we get it again, that we can protect our folks, the masons, the brick, that are protecting their employees from silica or whatever it may be. But they still sacrifice to donate that stuff to these frontline workers. That's America. That is who we are. That's who we are. And my hat's off to those folks. Lessons learned. I think we've learned how to relive, through technology, through everything. I know I've learned to relive. I sit here and watch President, struggle with getting his watch turned off. So, I mean, I know it's been a struggle for all of us, but, I would not even fathom how many dollars have been spent just on technology for folks to train their employees, to try to train their employees. However, it will never take place of that peer-to-peer training. Yeah. The stuff that, and I'm going to go on the stretch here with the president and say, I come from the trades as well, heavy highway, and that's the stuff we have to pass on, is that generational education that we don't learn from books or for our machinists that are side by side with us or whatever. There's always things that you have to learn from one another, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. Yeah. But yeah, it's been the year of learning, but I don't know if it's all been bad. I think it's pushed us into a state of that uncertainty that we had no choice but to learn. I mean, is that fair?
Yeah, it forced us.
I really like that.
Yeah, it forced us. It did force us. We were in doubt. My office, we went from paper case files to electronic. That's a huge plus for the environment of how much paper we generate. So I think the pandemic has really altered, and we talk about going back to normal. I think normal is not what we remember it as.
Exactly.
I think 2020 has been a page in history. So, yeah, one of the points, Pete, you had some bullet points here to talk about returning to work. One of our greatest concern is that training. We rely on the union halls, rely on these places to do this training. That when we ask employers, what about training? Well, the union halls, we will contact the halls and say, hey, can we get the training records for these employees? here they are. So, it has gone electronic, but still it's just not the same as that peer-to-peer or hands-on training. So we have to have that. In some of the incidents that we've seen is a lack of training where we can't have that face-to-face one-on-one training, and we are seeing it really start to affect safety and health. So I think that is, that was your first bullet point. That's
I think you're 100% right. The human interaction between the folks that have been around for a while, and the newest members of the workforce, the ability, the peer-to-peer education, the peer pressure when they need it, because heaven knows everybody's trying to do more and get it done faster, and there are more obstacles in the way now than there ever were. So your contractors are still trying to get the job done for prices that maybe they put out before COVID ever hit.
true.
So you've got people that are maybe not cutting corners, but trying to find faster ways to get things done, and sometimes faster isn't always better. And that human interaction on the job sites is such a big part of getting the work done, but also keeping everybody safe and bringing the job in on time. It's a big thing.
And just like this organization, that peer-to-peer sometimes is some of us more senior people that we're not as easy and truthful with some of those younger people when we tell them what they're doing wrong, And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing in some cases. So you're exactly correct that the things that we pass on generationally is what saves lives.
That's right. And it's ongoing. And our annual Workers' Comp Institute that the State Federation holds, we're so proud to have OSHA there with us because it is something that has to be, new people, as Bill said, into the workplace every year. And it's an ongoing thing. You've got to continue to do it. And we're ready to get back. And we're going to be advocates here for the funding for OSHA. And we need to get you staffed up too.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think another point to the returning to work. It's the cost of doing business. A lot of people I've seen, they had no problem doing the technology, so they can have Zoom meetings for sales or whatever. There's other parts of the cost of doing business, and I preach that in informal conferences. It is the cost of doing business, is training these folks, and it's going to be. It was hard at one point, but it's lacking, and we've missed a year of respirator fit testing because it's one-on-one, it's face-to-face. Medical evals for those respirators. It could be life. It could cost someone their life to put on a respirator that's not been medically evaluated or whatever.
That's a good point.
It's a different world. Mitigating and preventing the spread of COVID-19 in the workforce. We're seeing, construction. Sweat is dripping on each other. They're laying on each other to get wires pulled, or to pipe fitters up in a ceiling where it's hot, and they're face to face. It's real. I mean, for anybody that doubts that COVID-19 is real, I will tell you, October 20th, I had it. It's real. It's real. So we have to prevent it. The mask I'm not a fan of the mask, but they work. We're going to have to sacrifice something to get through something that could be short term. And the faster that we all comply with these things, the faster this is behind us, that we can learn the new life that we're living.
That's right. And Ken, if I could,
please.
For the last 11 months, the AFL-CIO and unions have been advocating for a temporary emergency standard at OSHA, so our workplaces know how to protect against airborne contagions.
Correct.
Now, just this week, the U.S. Department of Labor Secretary Marty Walsh, who happens to come out of the building trades in Massachusetts,
That's correct.
has advanced language to be kind of looked at to get that over to OSHA, so maybe we can get that moving. Are you hearing anything on that?
It's moving quickly.
Yeah.
It is moving quickly.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It is moving very quickly. The standard, for what that part of its work is, I hope that everybody that is capable, as Pete said, does get the vaccination, that, hopefully that standard will not be needed. That's the ultimate goal, I believe, is we don't really want more enforcement. We just want everybody to do the right things to get this behind us. But it is coming quickly, and it's going to be here, and it is going to be enforced.
Well, and as small as the globe is now, we can have a pandemic on our shores in a matter of a day, right? So whether it's COVID or something else, you know, we're looking at airborne contagions from now into the
Yes.
future that we just have to learn from this, right?
We do. This needs to be an educational, you know, ordeal that we don't fall in the lack of PPE or the lack of education or who we need to have as our frontline essential workers. So I think that's a big thing. You know, the best practices, you know, for me, it should be what I've been doing for 50 years. Hygiene, wash your hands, sanitize your hands, you know, cough, sneeze into your arm, whatever it's gonna be. That's the biggest thing with this whole pandemic is hygiene.
It's also important, we've got to remind people to just keep following through, keep social distancing, keep the masks, because, or you will see flare-ups, like we've seen in Michigan,
Yes.
or we've seen in Franklin County in Ohio. So I know everybody wants to go back and not have to wear the masks and go back to the way things were, but we just have to accept this new reality. And if we're going to overcome this, or we're going to turn the page, and the administration, Biden administration with especially Vice President Kamala Harris, has done remarkable things in the first 100 days. I mean, it's hard to imagine how far we've come in just a short, relatively 3 months. But I just keep telling people we're not there yet. We're moving in the right direction, and we just, you know, this is like the third, fourth quarter of the football game. The game is not done. You got to keep playing until that last second.
And it can be lost in the last second.
Yes.
You know, that's a good analogy, is it can be lost in the last second. You know, and one of the other things you hear, one of the things we're seeing a large uptick in calls from especially grocery store and retail workers. You know, the public's coming in here. We are occupational safety and health. We can't control the public. However, the employers can. You know, protect your employees. If you're protecting your employees from the public, I just don't want the employees to get, you know, and it's a two-way street. Employers can provide this stuff sometimes, or the unions can push it, or whatever that you need to do this. You know, it takes two sides to work together to make this happen. If your employer's supplying it to you, there's probably a reason. They probably, you know, there's really good employers out there. There are VPP companies out there. You know, there are, I'm sure, some of your clients that are very good employers. And when they give that stuff, it's there for you for a reason. And it's because of that OSHA Act we talked about 50 years ago, that they are required to supply you a safe and healthy work environment. But if you're not using it, just because the clientele is coming in and they're not utilizing it or whatever, you have been given the stuff to protect yourself. And please, please utilize it and don't fall into that, well, they're not doing it. That's going to lose the game in the last second.
Yeah, and you find the organized union workplaces are more advanced in the training of their members that work at these facilities, whether it's a construction site or a grocery store.
For sure.
About making sure, okay, we've worked this out with the employer, now you got to do your part. So the unionized workplaces are a little bit further ahead of the game, and we've got to help the non-union sites as well.
Yeah, you know, we've seen some of these employers that are in these retail trades that they're giving time off to go get the vaccinations, paid time off. You know, what that's as stand up as you get right there. That you're given that ability to do that.
Yeah, and a good example in Cincinnati is the work we've seen with Kroger and UFCW Local 75 President Ken Garvey. I mean, they were the first to have the masks. They were the first to have the plastic shields up. I mean, they were the first to say, we're going to raise our wages up to $15 an hour. They were one of the first companies out here to say hero pay. I mean, but again, working together, cooperatively together, UFCW and Kroger made a huge impact, which was a great leadership experience because now we could say, look, this is the way to do it. And a lot of companies started following their lead. So,
Yep. You know, some of the lessons learned from COVID-19, you know, related to inspections. A lot of people got caught with their pants down. I mean, that's plain and simple. And Tim, I think, really did a nice job of hitting that earlier, that we got to be prepared. You know, if it's somebody that you think that you're going to be considered now that you know your classification, you're an essential worker, have that surplus of PPE. Have it there. Have it on hand that this can hit our shores or generate here.
Yes.
There's nothing that says it can't even just generate from here.
That's right.
You know,
right, Ken.
watch the shelf lives. Make sure that it is maintained. You know, I think that's something that I think if this would have been closer to 9/11, when we had a lot of funding out there, a lot of emergency first responder stuff that had been supplied, as that time has went, the money's not been there to keep maintaining some of this equipment. So I think we may have been a little better prepared had it been closer to that time, but watch those shelf lives. That's stuff we're seeing. Plan, have your people fit tested, have them, medically evaluated. Your simple PPE assessment, you have to do it is the law, a written PPE assessment of your facility, which says you evaluate each job task that each person is doing, and it's written of what they're required to utilize, and you as an employer are required to supply it. So I think that's probably and the citations that's been issued for it is simple: PPE, respiratory, sanitation. It's really been the simple citations that's been issued out to employers.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are you seeing an uptick in this area particularly, because this is one of the hotbed areas of the country for the opioid type of things that cause violations and everything else, the opioid addictions and the use of illicit drugs and everything else? Are you seeing violations that possibly could have been prevented, or accidents that possibly could have been prevented because of opioid use or anything like that?
So are we seeing the uptick for opioid use and violations? One of the ways we look at this, and I explain it to, we have accidents or fatalities that occur. And the employer, the first thing they do is they come in with a drug screen. Well, this person was, however, micrograms above, this was their blood level. I always put it to them this way. If let's just use machine guard against an instance. If I, who have never been impaired from drugs, can reach over, under, or through, and still have the same accident occur to me, and I'm not impaired, it's a violation. It is a violation. However, we have seen, I think probably from some of the stresses, we've had some, first responders, we have had some healthcare workers that have been found in restrooms or rooms that have overdosed. I'm not sure if it's the pressures of living with these things right now or what, but there has been an uptick of on-the-job overdoses and death-related fatalities to it.
I think the mental health piece of this is a huge part of this also, and I think it all just ties together with OSHA and with workplace safety and everything else. The mental health problems that we are experiencing in this country because of COVID and because of the stresses that have come with it, the loss of incomes and everything else, is a big issue that is going to have to be dealt with.
I think it's bigger than we've even started to address.
I think so.
I agree, and I have said that about, the children with the schools, I mean, you see kids and they worry about everything sometimes, and we just haven't addressed it, but they don't express their worries. And I really think you're touching on something there that we have yet to see. Even, if a worker goes and they're working on the stadium right here, really close to this facility, and they're elevated 70, 80 feet off the ground, and their mind's not into the game, we have problems.
Yeah, and the mental health aspect of even just the COVID environment we're living in with our kids, is something we probably don't have time to deal with tonight, but it's a huge issue that I know is on your mind.
It is. It's weighed on me. Even for the non-occupational side of this, that the occupational side, it worries me that people are just not going to have their head in the game, and we have seen that they just were not paying attention and something happened, or on the job suicides. Construction worker suicide is through the roof, and I'm working with a gentleman that's one of our VPP companies, and he really is the one that brought it to the forefront of my attention. And some of the things that we get caught in as fatalities, they're suicide related because of, I think, some of these mental and stress issues that are out there.
For sure, and that's a big issue that we've been debating at the State House too, right, Pete? So,
Exactly.
Bill, you know that,
Yes.
so more to come on that, right?
Yep. And one of the things here is helping better protect the workers. I think some of these standards, is, hopefully more folks get vaccinated. We see this wind down, and it gives people the chance to start repurchasing this PPE or whatever it's going to take. I think some of the lessons learned is just exactly everything we've touched here tonight. I don't think there's one thing that was not a topic. I have enjoyed sitting here listening to all of you all go back and forth because this is the lessons we've learned.
Yeah, and we've got to help you with enforcement. Because you can have all the rules and laws on the books, if they're not enforced, then we're not where we need to be. And the proper deterrence, so the businesses don't just say, well, this is a cost of doing business. I'm gonna slide over here a little bit. That's a cost of doing business. So that's something that we're engaged in the labor movement all the time, and we want to be an ally and a partner and with our protection agencies.
And that is much appreciated because I think you all also help with the, it's proven statistically. Go to USA or www.osha.gov. A lot of COVID resources there, and one of the things with what you were just talking about, it's it's all there. They can go and find these things for the small employers. We see most fatalities are with these employers, 1 to 20 employees. They don't have the resources to have a full-time safety director or whatever. Reach out to the folks that know. Come to organized labor, whatever it's got to be. And there's resources out there, and they're free. You don't have to spend a fortune to protect your people. Again, just morally and ethically, it's the right thing to do, no matter the cost. It doesn't have to be expensive.
It's good to hear.
Yep. This is excellent. We've had a great discussion today. We're approaching the 1 hour mark, but I want to thank all of you for joining us today for this discussion, this great 2021 Workers' Memorial Day celebration. I want to thank our co-hosts, Brian from UAW.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you. And thank our special guest, Ken Montgomery from OSHA.
Thank you all. I can't thank you all enough for this outreach and the use of this wonderful facility. So, my goodness, thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Ken.
Tim, thanks for coming down from
Thanks
the
for having me.
Ohio
It's good to
AFL-CIO.
get out. Trust me.
And most importantly, we've got to do a strong shout out to our Labor Council Communications Director of Technology and Communications, Brian Griffin. And also a strong shout out to our technical and broadcast consultant, George Darnell. Without them, this studio production would have never happened.
Thank you.
But on behalf of our Labor Council Executive Board, our union affiliates, and tens of thousands of union members, union retirees, and working families throughout Greater Cincinnati, we thank you for tuning in tonight. May God bless and protect all workers in America and throughout the world. Solidarity forever in you and I.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.